Hello, everyone. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the She and Success podcast, a national platform spotlighting powerful women who are shaping the future of business, leadership, and impact across Canada. Here we bring you real stories, bold journeys, and conversations that inspire growth, visibility, and success. Today, we are exploring the distinct business case for high impact creative execution. In 2026, building a memorable brand is no longer just an aesthetic exercise. It is a fundamental strategic asset that determines your market visibility, client retention, and long term valuation. Joining us today is Radhika Kapoor, Creative Director, Brand Strategist, and the founder of Moon Rabbit Strategy. With over 15 years of deep industry, cross sector experience, Radhika has helped more than 40 small and medium sized Canadian businesses sharpen their voices and step out of the shadows. From mentoring Dragon Den's featured startups to scaling brands like Luxe Second Chance, she is the definitive expert founders call when they are done blending in. So, before further ado, let's welcome this very special guest. Radhika, welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Kripa. Thank you for that introduction. How are you today?
I'm doing amazing and I've been looking forward to this conversation, Radhika. So, very excited. Now, Radhika, you frequently mention that a vast majority of small businesses view branding as a superficial expense rather than, an active pipeline tool. So, let's start the conversation by understanding from your perspective why is branding one of the most overlooked growth tools for SMEs out there? Go ahead.
Branding needs patience. I think that's the way I would start this conversation.
Uh-huh.
If I have to make an analogy, I would compare brand building to financial planning, in the sense that you have to start planning now. You have to make that effort in building that strategy now to see results, years later or in the long run.
Right.
So to say, branding does not bring that instant gratification that marketing does, right? You run a marketing campaign and you
Exactly.
can
Right.
measure your, metrics and you get that instant gratification. But what happens if you've been marketing without actually having a brand strategy and a solid brand foundation? The moment you stop marketing, your sales will drop because you don't have that infrastructure and foundation to attract clients and lead your business.
Mhm.
So to say, like, there is need for intentional planning and strategy, which is often overlooked by small medium enterprises.
Definitely. I think you've put it together very beautifully because treating your brand architecture as a primary business strategy, it ensures that your visual identity actively converts prospects rather than, just looking pretty. So, even as a media professional, I, try to explain this to so many people the difference between marketing and branding because so many people out there get it wrong all the time. But as you rightly said, branding is a long term game. It's an
Exactly.
experience that anyone feels of your company. Marketing on the other hand is the instant result thing that people get that converts into sales as well. So beautifully explained, thank you so much for that. Now, building on this, Radhika, let's explore how weak brand foundations create costly business friction. So, from your extensive experience, what signs usually show that a company's branding is, kind of limiting its growth?
So, great question. One of the biggest sign is if you've been consistently marketing and you're
Yeah.
not seeing the results you expect your marketing to show up. That's one of the biggest signs, which means there's something lacking in the story in your communication that you
Hmm.
are putting across through your all your marketing efforts, right? Now, there are other signs that you might see, which is you're constantly putting yourself out there communicating, but you're not attracting the right kind of clientele. So, which means there's some kind of misalignment between your messaging and the communication. Another sign is when and this one's a little bit harder to detect, and I would say
Hmm.
this is for businesses that have been running for a few years. I see so many businesses, they've invested well in building the brand foundation, right? So they've done their research initially, they have beautiful brand handbooks, right? They've got a good website. But over the years, their business has grown and transformed into something a little different, but their
Right.
branding has not kept up
Changed.
to that,
Yeah.
right? And that is when the brand is holding the business back. So in that scenario, a good sign is that your business is ready to grow, but you're feeling stuck and you're not able to grow it and take it to next stage. And that's when you kind of have to revisit that brand strategy and figure out what's holding you back. Is it, are you connecting with your current audience, or is, has your audience changed, or is the same people? Or sometimes is the offering change? It's the, are you still
Mhm.
talking, addressing the same pain point? Are you, what kind of transformation your business is providing to your customers? So many aspects, right, that one has to keep in mind and keep evolving as the business evolves.
That is so, rightly put together, because so many times when we start and, from where we get to in a couple of years, we usually pivot and we evolve, right? But if we're not putting it across the messaging that is going out to the people who don't know about us, then definitely there's a gap, right? So realizing that an outdated brand voice actively repels your ideal client, it allows you to confidently pause reactive marketing and fix your actual foundation. So that was a great reminder, Radhika. Thank you so much for that. We
Another thing I
Yeah.
will add to that is, I think one mistake that we end up making is we treat brand building as a one-time activity.
Right.
Branding is, it's a living entity. As long as you
Hmm.
have your business, you have a living brand, and the brand needs to reflect the business, right? The culture, the values, the problem that you're solving. Everything needs to work cohesively.
Definitely. Each thing that you're addressing is absolutely spot on. And it feels like I'm having a podcast with my own self, because I truly believe in these things as well. And we talked about the problem part of it, right? What makes brands weak. Let's now talk about the solution part of it. So, building authority specifically on a small business budget is something that a lot of our listeners are very concerned about, because as an SME owner, you're very conscious about each penny or each dollar that is going out of your pocket, right? And rightly so, because you are on a budget. So, how can SMEs build a strong brand without a massive budget? How do you suggest that happens?
So, going back to my analogy about comparing branding to financial planning,
Hmm.
brand building is a long term investment. Having said that, you don't really need a massive budget to build that brand. Um, if I really have to boil it down to three core things that you need to pay attention to, I would say one, you have to have clarity on what is that emotional differentiator, right? So when I say emotional differentiator, I'm not just talking about how your business differentiates itself from its competitor in services or products, but how it delivers its message differently, that it resonates with your audience, right? That's number one. Number two, I would say stay authentic to your voice, especially now, like with so much social media noise out there, AI noise out there. It's so much more important to have your own authentic voice. Otherwise, it's just so easy to get lost in the crowd. And for that, I would urge businesses to be a little bit braver and not shy away from using your authentic voice. It's so important. Um, Thirdly, I would say stay consistent. So when you pick a voice, when you know your audience, it's very easy to feel, especially for business owners, to feel tempted knowing that, oh, we can also offer this service or we can offer that product, and just keep going in different directions, or keep trying to sell their product and service to audience that are not part of the core target
Mhm.
market, right? So it's very easy to just go all over the place, but stay
Right.
consistent, stick to what you know your brand stands for. The messaging, even visually, the visual identity needs to be consistent across all your marketing efforts and platforms. And, these things, again, like branding needs patience, right? It builds
Definitely.
itself over time. But if you do these things right, you end up building credibility. People trust, people know what to expect of your business, right? That
Right.
builds trust, that builds
Mhm.
credibility, and you attract the right kind of customer.
Again, I'm just loving where this conversation is going, Radhika. And building on everything that you've just said, I'd like to now give a special message to all of our listeners, specifically to the purpose driven business leaders and founders out there who are listening and watching this. In 2026, blending is a business failure. If your current brand isn't working as hard as you are, visit moonrabbitstrategy.com to secure your spot today. It's time to look like the market leader you actually are, and you can learn so much from Radhika Kapoor. So, Radhika, coming back to you out there now, grounding your creative identity in a hyper focused strategic niche, it allows a small business to out position massive competitors through raw messaging clarity. So that's amazing. Now I'd like to explore balancing strategic thinking with creative execution. So why should branding balance creative storytelling with business strategy? How do you find that perfect sweet spot to begin your efforts?
That's such a wonderful question for two reasons. First, there's so much information out there, right? Just like, you can find information on how to write a business plan. You
Yeah.
can, if you look up online, you can find different frameworks, diagrams, structures on how to build brand strategy. But what is lacking there is none of those frameworks actually tell you how to implement it in your day-to-day business operations, in your marketing. And that is where the role of creative storytelling comes in. Why creative storytelling is so important is because that is what connects with your audience on an emotional level,
Hmm.
right? And that,
Right.
it's very important. It's rightly said that people don't buy products or services, they buy
Yes.
stories, they
Right.
buy feelings,
Hmm.
right? If your business can make them feel, um, well, whatever it is they're looking for in that product or service category, right? If it can make them feel that, they would buy from you.
Yeah.
So, and that is the role of the creative storytelling. Also, it's a creative storytelling that helps you differentiate your business from your competitors, especially in scenarios where you don't have like a proprietary product or service. You're
Right.
just, let's say, um, a service provider, a lawyer, or a HR agency, or even handmade soaps, right? Product
Yeah.
based, doing very similar things to your competitor. How do you differentiate yourself? It's that creative storytelling that tells your story uniquely. So it's really important to
Mhm.
balance both out.
Definitely. I think what you said about marrying metrics driven consumer data in a way with emotional visual storytelling, right? That combination, it ensures that your brand identity is both financially viable and also deeply moving. So that is amazing. I'd also like to talk about, so we talked about the shared, mistakes that you see people making. But what about the shared trait behind today's most impactful founders? So, from that perspective, what common traits do the most successful Canadian brands share, according to you?
Number one, they're brave. I'm happy to repeat that again and again because um, it's the brave founders and the brave business owners who are not afraid to tell their story authentically,
Yeah.
right? And that is really what is helping them stand out from the crowd.
Hmm.
So when you're authentic, your marketing efforts, are also working, it's showing results, and you're not uh, playing it safe, because when you play it too safe, you're kind of becoming part of the crowd and not standing out.
Yeah.
Second, I would say they have clarity. Clarity is so important. It is so important to have built that foundation, that strategy. You have to know your value proposition. You have to know who your audience is, not just the demographics, but how they think, how they feel, how they, what is that pain point that you're solving? What is the
Yeah.
cultural context that they would relate to you, right? So you have to have done your research and have clarity on what you stand for, how you can differentiate yourself, and then how and when to talk to your customer. Thirdly, I would say they understand that the primary purpose of marketing is not metrics, but it is building trust. Yes, metrics are important to understand how your campaigns are doing,
Mhm.
but I find sometimes we get lost so much in metrics that we forget that the primary goal is to build that connection and gain trust, right?
Mhm.
And that comes from, your messaging, your building credibility
Mhm.
through your achievements or your story. And, there's so many different aspects to that.
Definitely. I'm loving this conversation, Radhika, because this is not just insightful to me per se, but also to our listeners. So I'm very thankful for whatever, is coming directly from your heart. And what you said, committing completely to authentic community alignment and, unshakable core values, if you have, is what turns a basic commodity into an iconic and, most importantly, trusted institution, as you highlighted. So, definitely, we'd love to have you back, hopefully, for an in person episode that we do the next with you. But for now, Radhika, today, before we let you go, if there's one final piece of advice that you have for our listeners out there, specifically to the founders who are overwhelmed by, rebranding their business, if you could whisper one thing into their ears, what would you say and why?
If founders are looking to rebrand their business, I think the main concern is to find out why, to question why, right?
Mm-hmm.
A very good place to start is to ask your favorite customer that if they were to recommend your business to someone, what would they say?
Hmm.
Right? Because then you're seeing the kind of customer that works well for your business. How do they perceive your business?
Right.
Is that perception aligned with how you want your business to be perceived, or what your brand story is there alignment or is there disconnect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good place to start with, and then understand that if your core brand promise aligns with that, or then figure out what is that thing that's holding you back, and where do you need to make a change and evolve your brand.
That is indeed, again, a great reminder that true clarity always starts with an honest look at your own strategic direction before you ever touch a sketchbook, right? So, Radhika, it was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kripa. It was wonderful chatting with you today.
All right, that was Radhika Kapoor from Moon Rabbit Strategy, a masterclass in moving past generic design, leveraging branding for tangible mid market growth, and understanding how to build an authoritative, purpose led brand in 2026. To all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning into the She and Success podcast. To learn more about how we are supporting women entrepreneurs beyond the platform, visit the She and Success Foundation at sheandsuccessfoundation.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our exclusive shipping partner, Purolator, for their ongoing commitment to supporting women entrepreneurs and helping them build, grow, and lead successful businesses across Canada. So visit sheandsuccess.ca and join us again as we continue to celebrate women who lead, build, and inspire. See you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.